The fifth petition: forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. This part of the prayer is the game changer. It is the strategic key to the whole treatment. Pay very close attention. This is where authentic prayer begins to change our circumstances. Jesus has crafted and formulated this marvelous prayer in such a way that it deals with the complete unfoldment of the immaterial essence of who we are. I'm talking about our ideas, personalities, and emotions. I'm talking about the soul. The only way that I can make sense of my soul is to describe what it is not. It's not my body. It's not the color of my skin. It's not the length of my hair or my fingernails. It's not my eyes or my ears. It's not my blood, my muscle, or my bones. I know that I am more than any physical attribute. I know that this is true because if you are listening to this and do not know me personally, you have no idea what I really look like or where I am. You are clueless about nationality and my culture. I am more than any physical description. My true essence lies in my thoughts, feelings, and consciousness. My body is the vessel that carries me, but my identity, emotions, and experiences define who I truly am. It's my inner self that makes decisions, feels joy and sorrow, and connects with others on a deeper level. There is absolutely no physical attribute that can capture the essence of my soul. So, this prayer includes everything necessary for the recovery and healing of our souls, presented as the most clear and powerful solution. It's so perfectly composed that there's not a single unnecessary thought or word. Each idea fits seamlessly into place, creating a harmonious and complete sequence. Adding more would be excessive, and removing anything would make it incomplete. At this crucial point, it addresses the vital aspect of forgiveness. Jesus promptly lets us know about our relationship with God. He reveals God's nature and specific location. He directs us towards our proper state of mind and calls it the kingdom. He exposes our true work and how it should be performed. And Jesus articulates all of this to us in the first three petitions or clauses. The Nazarene then explains the recipe for our true nourishment and the way in which we can realize and obtain it. And now here he acknowledges the forgiveness of our mistakes and those who have a concern with us. The forgiveness of our error thinking and mistakes is the central problem of life. And when we know better and don't do better, we are hit with a sense of separation from God. And this is the major tragedy of human experience. It is, of course, rooted in selfishness, driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity. We step on the toes of our peers and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, and it seems like there's no reason for it. But we usually find that at some time in the past, we were inconsiderate and made selfish decisions, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. Sometimes we use passive-aggressive tactics to try to get something we don't rightfully deserve. This behavior stems from seeing ourselves as separate and self-centered, while the truth is that we are all interconnected. Our true selves are united with God, expressing the same ideas and reflecting the same nature. Since we are spiritually part of a greater whole, we are connected to everyone. In God we live, move, and exist, making us all fundamentally one. We try to live apart from God. We try to do without that relationship. We blocked it out, sometimes hoping to permanently live the rest of our lives, never having to rely on what we considered the weakness of having to consult with the invisible man. We joke about being reunited with our friends in hell, even though we are convinced that hell is not a real place. We hate the idea of having to worship and be like those old weak people, and live a life like a reject from the cool society. We behave as if we possess life independently, as if our minds are separate entities with their own plans, purposes, and interests, separate from the power that gave us this life. We want this separation from God to be true, And if this were true, it would mean that existence is not unified and harmonious, but a chaotic battleground of competition and discord. It would imply that we are entirely separate from our fellow humans, giving us permission to conspire and scam and scheme on others, making us capable of injuring, robbing, or even destroying them without thinking that we are not harming ourselves. In fact, it would suggest that the more we take from others, the more we gain for ourselves. It would mean that our own interests must come first, and being indifferent to the welfare of others would benefit us. Naturally, this would lead others to treat us the same way, and we could expect many to do so. And some may be stronger and more psychotic than we are, which would lead us to having and needing weapons. And if this were true all the time, the entire universe would be nothing more than a jungle, destined to destroy itself through its inherent weakness and anarchy, even with all the bad news and propaganda that we are bombarded with every day. Something keeps us fighting for the good news. It is God with us. It is our soul, our spirit, our faith. And therein lies the joy of life, the overwhelming desire to make things safe for our children, the want and need for peace and tranquility, the ambition to build a beautiful society in the face of those who desire to take what God has gifted us without working for it, the need to be compassionate, loving, kind, generous, hopeful, happy, and prosperous. This is the God in us. It will always come out. It will always show itself, no matter what the cost. We cannot be separated from it. We are the children. We are the manifestation of a hallowed consciousness that circulates deep inside every man, woman, and child. Many people act as if they believe there is no God, or at least no God in them. Even more people, who would be appalled to admit it openly, still have a vague feeling that there is something at work that is greater than their own humanity, even if they don't consciously act on it. This mindset is the root of the unconscious behavior that leads to resentment, condemnation, jealousy, remorse, and all the other negative emotions that follow the path that leads to separation from God. This belief in the independent and separate existence is at the core of our erroneous nature. And now, before we can advance any further in our understanding and experience, we have to get surgical and take a scalpel to this parasitic thought process and cut it out once and for all. Jesus knew this, and with this definite end in view, he inserted at this critical point a carefully prepared statement that would focus directly on our end and his, without any chance or possibility of missing the mark. He inserted what is nothing less than a requirement for our journey. He drafted a declaration which would force us, without any conceivable possibility of escape, evasion, mental reservation, or deceptive behavior of any kind, to execute the divine authority and mastery of forgiveness in all its fullness and far-reaching power. When we recite the great prayer thoughtfully and sincerely, we are compelled to confront the issue of forgiveness directly. We must extend genuine forgiveness to anyone we believe has wronged us. Jesus leaves no room for uncertainty on this fundamental point. His prayer is crafted with exceptional precision, ensuring that once we focus on this matter, we are inevitably required to forgive our enemies in sincerity and truth, or never repeat this prayer again. It is likely that anyone who understands this written direction will find it impossible to use the Lord's Prayer without first forgiving. Attempting to recite it without forgiveness will likely result in an inability to complete it with authenticity, and this crucial petition will become an insurmountable obstacle. Notice that Jesus does not say, "Forgive me my trespasses, and I will try to forgive others," or "I will see if it can be done," or "I will forgive generally, with certain exceptions." He gives us the opportunity to declare that we have actually been forgiven, and we have forgiven all others. and He makes sure that the affirmation to our own forgiveness depends upon the action we take with ourselves and others. Who among us, with the grace to pray, does not yearn for forgiveness for their own mistakes and faults? Who would be so irrational as to seek the kingdom of God without wanting to be free from their own guilt? Surely no one. Therefore, we find ourselves in the unavoidable position, realizing that we cannot seek our own forgiveness until we have forgiven others. The forgiveness of others will produce a state of consciousness, a passage to heaven, which is not a physical place. It represents a harmonious alignment with the divine mind, where the soul and body are in perfect unity with God's thoughts and nature. And Jesus knew it, and has led us to the door where we enter this transformational personality change. You must forgive everyone who has ever hurt you if you want to be forgiven yourself. That is the price we pay. All of it can have weight in our hearts. You must forgive others, or we are doomed to carry not only our weight, but theirs as well. And having discontinued your own mistakes, you must accept the forgiveness of God for them too, or you cannot make any progress. You have to forgive yourself. Not being able to forgive yourself is only spiritual pride. And by that mistake, we fall from grace. We cannot make this point any more clear to ourselves. We have got to forgive. There are few people in the world who have not at some time or other been hurt, really hurt by someone else, or been disappointed, or injured, or deceived, or misled. These things sink into the memory where they usually cause inflamed and festering wounds, and there is only one remedy. They have to be plucked out and thrown away. And the one and only way to do that is by forgiveness. Naturally, it is easy to forgive those who have caused us only minor harm. It is simple to move past a trivial loss, and most people are willing to do so. However, the law of being requires us to forgive not only these minor offenses, but also the significant wrongs that initially seem impossible to forgive. The broken heart may cry, "It is too much to ask. That meant too much to me. It is impossible. I cannot forgive it." Yet the Lord's Prayer makes our own forgiveness an intimate, conscious contact with God, as awkward and useless as it may feel. There is no escaping this requirement. Therefore, forgiveness must be extended regardless of the depth of our injury or the severity of our suffering. It must be done. If your prayers are not being answered, examine your conscience to see if there is someone you have yet to forgive. Identify any lingering resentment or grudges, which may be disguised as self-righteousness, against an individual, group, nation, race, social class, religious movement, political party, or any other entity. If such feelings exist, you must undertake the act of forgiveness. This prayer is no joke, and with daily use you will soon realize how valuable it is. Forgiveness is the key to healing and recovery, filling your heart with strength, peace, and renewed hope. Setting others free means setting yourself free, because resentment is really a form of attachment. It is a cosmic truth that it takes two to make a prisoner, the prisoner and a jailer. There is no such thing as being a prisoner on one's own account. Every prisoner must have a jailer, and the jailer is as much a prisoner as the inmate. When you hold resentment against anyone, you are bound to that person by a cosmic link, a real, mental chain. You are tied by a cosmic tie to the thing that you hate. The one person perhaps in the whole world whom you most dislike is the very one who you are attaching yourself to with a set of handcuffs. Is this truly what you desire? Is this the state in which you wish to continue living? Remember, you are connected to whatever occupies your thoughts, and if this connection persists, the source of your resentment may reappear in your life, potentially causing more harm. Can you afford this? Clearly, no one can. Therefore, the path is clear. You must sever these ties through a deliberate and spiritual act of forgiveness. You must release them and let them go. By forgiving, you free yourself and save your soul. Additionally, because the law of love applies to everyone, you also help save their soul, making it easier for them to become who they are meant to be. This is the difficult inner work we must do if we really want to be free. As interesting and true as this forgiveness stuff may sound, it would be absolutely useless if you didn't know how to forgive. Just how, in the face of all this intelligent, wise, and good information, just how is this potentially unnoticed and inconspicuous act of forgiveness to be accomplished when we have been so deeply injured that, though we have long wished with all our hearts that we could forgive, we have nevertheless found it impossible? When we have tried and tried to forgive, but have found that we were just trying to do something that was beyond our capability. Every time the inner hurt and feeling of how we were taken advantage of went away, it would come back with a vengeance. The technique of forgiveness is simple enough and not very difficult to manage when you understand how. The first step that is essential is the willingness to forgive. Next is to know your ability to accept what was done and that you can forgive the offender, because you know that you cannot and will never change your past. Now the greater part of the work is already done. People have always made forgiveness the problem because they have been under the erroneous impression that if they forgive a person, it means that they have a seat at your table, or it means that you must compel yourself to like them. Fortunately, this is by no means the case. We are not called upon to like anyone whom we do not find ourselves liking spontaneously, and indeed, it is quite impossible to make yourself like someone who offended you, and even much more difficult if that someone hurt you deeply. It would be like trying to teleport yourself to another planet or flying without the aid of technology or wings. And if you make an effort to convince yourself into liking someone, you will finish by disliking or hating the offender more than ever. People used to think that when someone had hurt them deeply, it was their duty, as good religious followers, to force a feeling of liking that person. And since doing such a thing is utterly impossible, they suffered a great deal of distress, and it never ended well. In mostly all cases it ended with failure, and the result was a sense of inauthentic posturing and phoniness. We are not obliged to like anyone, but we are under a binding obligation to love everyone. Don't get this twisted. Love, or charity as the Bible calls it, means a real live sense of impersonal goodwill. This has nothing directly to do with feelings, though it is always followed sooner or later by a wonderful feeling of peace and happiness. The method of forgiving is this: get by yourself and become quiet. Repeat any prayer or treatment that helps you relax and calms you. Meditate in order to center yourself, if that works for you. Read a spiritual book or the Bible in order to improve your emotional environment. Now, when you feel free and safe in the moment, you can quietly say, "I fully and freely forgive," mentioning the name of the offender. "I release them and let them go. I completely forgive the whole situation that I have been repeatedly thinking about. As far as I am concerned, it is now finished forever. The burden of resentment is now released to the Christ identity within me. They are free now, and I am free too. I wish them well in every phase of their life. That incident is finished now and has no more power to hurt me moving forward. The truth has set me free. I thank God. I return to this world a new creation in the Christ." Then get up and go about your business. On no account repeat this act of forgiveness, because you have done it once and for all, and to do it a second time would be a tactical rejection of your own work. Afterward, whenever the memory of the offender or offense happens to come into your mind, bless the delinquent thought briefly and dismiss the thought. Do this, however many times the thought may come back. Do not take revenge in your thoughts, but leave room for God's justice. I tell you the truth. No one, absolutely no one, gets away with anything, and this you can trust. After a few days, it will return less and less often until you forget it altogether. Then, perhaps after an interval, shorter or longer, the old trouble may come back to memory once more. But you will find that now, all bitterness and resentment have disappeared and you are free. Your forgiveness is complete. You will experience a wonderful joy in the realization of the demonstration. Everybody should practice general forgiveness every day as a matter of discipline. When you say your daily prayers, issue a general pardon, forgiving everyone who may have injured you in any way, and on no account particularize. Simply say, I freely forgive everyone. Then during the day, should the thought of grievance or resentment come up, release it with love. Briefly bless those who do not know what they do, and dismiss the thought. The result of this policy will be that very soon you will find yourself cleared of all resentment and condemnation, and the effect upon your happiness, your bodily health, and your general life will be nothing less than revolutionary. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us.